recording.
Yay! We figured it out.
Alright, it's showing up on the, yeah, there you go.
Yep, we're sounding good. So,
Right.
welcome.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to make these up, so this is maybe number 3, maybe number
6.
One of those numbers. This is the third part where we're going to start talking about relationships in the romantic relationships, I should say, at first. And then after that, we'll start getting into more the whole family, I guess. But it all starts with the man and woman. And as we talked about before, this particular man and woman are not in the greatest of spaces. And we're going to start talking about why and how they got there. The music group that we're talking about is called the Civil Wars. If you want to look them up on YouTube. And the song we're going to discuss today is called Poison and Wine by the Civil Wars. And you said you've heard this one before?
Yes, I believe too. Yes, definitely. I definitely have heard this before.
Yeah, it's a good song. I told my sister a while back that if I had to pinpoint a song that kind of encapsulated my previous relationship, this is probably one of them. It's just such a powerful way to distill all those emotions that are going on down to one song. And it's a pretty powerful song, if you ask me. When you first heard it, did you what kind of stood out to you?
The lyric that says, I don't love you, but I always will.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's the most potent part.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a... It's beyond like a love-hate relationship. It's like a I can't help but love you type of sentiment. And it's almost like, it's so tragic too, because you want to do something. You want to love, you want to give all yourself to another person. But it's almost like circumstances beyond both of you aren't allowing you guys to be the best version of yourself to each other.
Exactly. I feel like this is the epitome of two people that need to heal, and they came together instead of healing.
Right. Using the relationship to mask deeper problems from you want to solve.
Exactly.
We discussed a while back about, maybe on the podcast or just in conversation, about when we make the mistake of using the other person to become essentially God to us in a relationship, where they have so much pressure on them to make up for all of our inadequacies that they get overwhelmed by our own pain.
Exactly. And I believe that we need to realize that someone can choose to be along with us on our journey of healing.
Right.
However, they are not able to do the work for us, and also they're not God.
Right.
They're just not, and they never will be.
Yeah. It's such a strange dynamic because human beings have God in them.
Exactly.
And there's so many times where that God nature comes out that sometimes we mistake those moments for like actual divinity almost. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, yeah, you're making the image of God. This is going to come out of you at some point in time. However,
so good.
The full burden of who God is can't be placed on a human shoulder.
At all. Just the knowing that he knew us before we were even in our mother's womb. Right. You know what I'm saying? And then we meet, like you said, it always starts with a couple. Man meets woman at 25 and 27. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, there's all that time.
History, yeah.
Right. You have no idea about it. They can tell you about it, and you can hear it even from their perspective.
Right.
And that's even not the full picture, because it's not the whole story. Even though not saying that people are attempting to lie or deceive the story or make one up, just it's their perspective.
Right.
You know, it's very human. So that's their part of the story, and then you talk to their mom or their brother, their sister, or their stepdad or their cousin, and you'll see a whole different side of the same exact story. So
Exactly.
anything that you hear from someone, just always know that there's another side of the story, not in a malicious way that they are wanting to skew, you know, your view of them or anything like that. It's just simply knowing that that's their perspective. That's how it impacted them.
Right. Exactly. And for both parties, you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So you can go into a situation with all your right intentions, but there's just some stuff that blindsides you out of nowhere. And a lot of times, we'll give each other the benefit of the doubt. It's like, hey, say everyone has the same intentions. Everyone wants to make things work. However, you're going to get blindsided by somebody you don't expect in life in general.
Exactly.
And by that person that you love. And some aspect of them is going to come out that you're expecting, however you both not have to deal with, you know. And I think the only thing that I've had success with managing those times when it happens is an outside perspective, first of all, and then where God gives you that background insight to yourself and the other person. That's the real deciding factor in my opinion.
Yes.
Because there's some things that only God can know, and then things only God can solve that are required to actually, a healthy relationship.
I agree 1,000,000,000%, because even sometimes people know what the problem is and they don't know how to solve it.
Exactly.
You know, so
Exactly.
It's sometimes you have one, sometimes you have the other. You need both.
Right.
To keep moving forward.
So, the song, it's great just starting off and just get right into it. And we just read the first stanza here, and we'll start talking about that.
Right. So the first stanza says, "You only know what I want you to. I know everything you don't want me to."
So just to, if you already heard this on YouTube, you know this, but this is the man and woman kind of doing a he said, she said thing.
Right.
And it's like an argument over song, but it's so deep, that's what we're talking about. But yeah, so he starts off, "You only know what I want you to," and she retorts back, "I know everything you don't want me to."
Right. And he says, "Oh, your mouth is poison, your mouth is wine." And she goes back and says, "You think your dreams are the same as mine."
Man. There's some arguments where it's like, why don't you know what you're going to eat? And why don't you pick up your laundry? Or why don't you... This is not one of those arguments.
No.
This is one of those fundamental, I'm not sure if we're going to be together after this conversation type of arguments.
Exactly. I've talked to so many different people and different couples and stuff like that, and sometimes it seems like they have the same argument over and over and over again, and I feel like this song represents something like that, like a core problem, a core issue, that it's like either we understand this and grow from this, or like you said, we gotta split.
Yeah. And one thing I share is after having many of these types of conversations, or arguments I should say, after my relationship actually ended completely, one thing God told me, he said, the way that I conducted myself in these type of arguments was no longer acceptable. I'm not a monastic or extroverted person, but when I get into something that I care about, I'm very animated, I'm very passionate about that, right? And there's a certain point that I get to where I don't care anymore. And when I mean I don't care, I mean I don't care at all, right? And in that mode, the words and the phrases and everything that come out of my mouth were so destructive that God was like, if I bless you with the opportunity to have a relationship, you can never allow yourself to get to a point where you are tearing down that other person with your mouth the way you have done in the past. And that's the type of things that, that's the type of benefit that I should say that God gives you, is that sometimes when the other person gets you angry and mad or whatever else to a point where you are not acting that way, sometimes the only one who can tell you something is God. And that's the reason why he should be in the relationship from the beginning, because he keeps both people accountable to themselves and to him. And when people say that God's glue that holds a relationship together, that's the type of thing that he does. Is he takes the man or woman aside and says, hey, I get you're mad, I get you're angry, but you're not going to talk to my son or my daughter like that. You're not going to act that way. You're going to hold yourself to a higher standard. And if the only person that the people in a relationship respect is themselves, it's never going to work.
Not ever.
You have to be accountable to a higher power that dictates to both of you what the parameters of that relationship are and how you're going to conduct yourself in that relationship.
Absolutely. And I think in my previous relationship, it ended because we had different definitions of what love was. And so, yes, and if you don't have that same vision, that same definition, then there's no way to continue on. And I think that's the same thing. I think that the Word of God, relationship with God, like you said, puts those parameters in.
It sets the standard.
Right, it sets the standard. And if you don't have a standard, there's no foundation, essentially. There's no way to build on something you don't even have. You don't have any substance. You have nothing.
Right. Part of the destructive nature of human beings is that if we don't have boundaries, we're going to test the limits of whatever it is we're doing. And that could be good or bad, because a lot of the innovation that has happened in human history is because we tested the limits, right? We're like, the right motives are like, hey, I think you can fly. And then it's like, no, we can't. And it's like, why not? Birds fly. Let's just act like a bird, And it sounds ridiculous until you end up flying, right? So you can test those boundaries. However, there still has to be respect of gravity or you're going to die.
Exactly.
You have to respect wind currents or you're going to die, And it's like, there is still, no matter how much how much you want to test those boundaries, if you don't have respect to that higher power and that higher, the higher power, then you will end up falling and crashing to the ground eventually.
Absolutely. There's nothing else that can happen. Right. And I think people need to understand that.
Right.
That it's not that you're not able to will it to do something different because you want it.
Yeah.
You gotta, for lack of, play by the rules.
Yeah.
You just do.
There's things that are bigger than us,
Right.
And one of the conversations I had with God after the demise of my relationship was pertaining to the fact that my own arrogance towards her not vices, but the things that were coming against her mind and her family and her heart and everything else. I heard the history. Like, when we talked, I learned more about her, who she was, where she came from. And my arrogance told me that I could deal with that. I could somehow fill in the void that those different life experiences had started in her. And it's not until you fail completely that you understand, like, hey, there's a therapist for a reason, you know what I mean? There's healing process for a reason. And you're not strong enough as a spouse or a husband, father, or husband or girlfriend or wife or whoever to hold the weight of someone else's past sometimes. Sometimes you need some outside help. And it's not a weakness to admit that.
Right. The scripture says and a multitude of counselors their safety.
Right.
And so I feel like that we need to be willing to be a part of the person's life, not their entire life.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, yes, you are a very significant part. I would say, under God, you're number one. Yes, absolutely. And also, you know, they need friends. They
Okay.
need healthy relationships with their pastor or their accountability,
Right.
their therapist. They need those other relationships as well, the trainer, to be a whole person.
Right.
And all of that is not just in one, you know, it's in community.
So, one thing that came to mind when reading these words and listening to this song was the amount of manipulation that had went on. And we'll get to that. I think it's on the next stanza, where each person in a relationship is doing one thing, trying to get the other person to react a certain way. So instead of saying, hey, you made me feel X, Y, and Z, let's talk about that, they went around and said, or did something that they expected the other person to react a certain way. So instead of communicating overtly and saying, hey, trying to do this, this, and this, it was like a manipulation factor, right? And I think when you get to a point where you're manipulating your significant other in order to get them to do what you want them to do, you've crossed a line that will ultimately end in catastrophe. You know what I mean?
Right.
For one, no one likes to be manipulated, right? So if that's what they're getting from you, they're going to resist you just off of instinct alone. Like, I don't want to be controlled. They're mad. I don't want to be controlled, right? And then the second part is what you're willing to do to control another person starts deteriorating your own soul and your own morals. And some people, it gets to a point where the relationship fails before you can get violent. But ultimately, at the end of violence is control and manipulation. So we see domestic violence where a man or woman is trying to hurt the other person to control them. And what we have to understand, that's the end result of manipulation. It's not something I could just wake up and decide to do one day.
Right.
I tried to control him this way, it didn't work. I tried to control him this way, it didn't work. So ultimately, I'm going to use my own hands, my own strength, my own force. And you have to catch yourself before you're going to get to that point.
Yes, it takes vulnerability to tell a person, I need this or I desire this.
Okay.
And to, like they were talking about, you think you know, or you think your dreams are the same as mine. It's like, well, why don't they know what your actual dreams are? You know, and even when you're talking about, you only know what I want you to.
Right.
And it's like, well, why aren't you telling everything?
Exactly.
Like, why are you being covert?
Right.
Why are you telling half-truths? Why are you being deceptive?
Right.
Why are you telling your dreams to your friend? Or,
Right.
you know, why aren't you...
coworker.
Right, that.
Right.
Why are we...
Your work husband.
Which is,
He knows all your dreams, which his past doesn't.
problems.
You know what I mean?
God bless it.
And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, does that sound like love at all? Or
No.
the exact opposite? It's like,
For real.
let me keep all the things that are important to me away from the one I say I love.
Right. It's madness.
Right.
It's legit madness, because if you are saying you want that connection, you have to be vulnerable. You have
Right.
to be transparent.
Right.
You've got to say those things and put yourself out there where you could be let down.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And be courageous enough to still share those things, even if that person chooses not to. If that person could maybe use it against you, and all these different things that can happen. Those are what your fears say.
Right.
Oh, they're going to use it against me. Oh, they're going to tell somebody else. They are going to not do it. Like, it can be so many different things that people think could happen if they share themselves,
Right.
in that kind of way. And the thing about it is, love takes a lot of courage, where you're going to still do all those things no matter what the other person is going to do, in hopes that their heart and mind and their standard is like yours, and they're not going to weaponize your vulnerability. They're not going to weaponize you really giving yourself.
Exactly. And 99% of the time, this is not going to happen. However, if you can catch yourself in the middle of this argument and pause for 2 seconds and say, what happened last time she was vulnerable with me? What did I do with that vulnerability? Because the answer to that question, it will tell you why she's now trying to manipulate you instead of just telling you how it is. Because last time she said just how it was, he reacted a certain way that told her, okay, it's no longer safe to tell this person how I actually feel, so let me get there some other way.
Oof.
That's usually what happens. And it may not mean just once, it happens multiple times to where it's like, okay, I'm not able to be normal with this person. However, I'm still with them, I still love them, but I can't just come out and say how I feel. I have to say it in a sneaky way, I have to say it in a manipulative way, and I can't just come out and say how I feel. Because this person taught me that that's no longer a option between us.
By their response or reactions, it's probably more when you pause. I feel like you get a chance to respond,
Right.
And when you don't pause, you just react.
Right.
And it's usually off of a trigger, which, triggers are usually seated in pain and hurt.
Yeah.
And so you're coming from the wrong place anyway.
Right. Exactly. So. And a lot of this is just hindsight revelation, where you sit back and think like, what just happened? You know what I mean? Like, all damage is done. However, you have a chance to reflect, and you're like, well, what just happened? And one thing I noticed when I sat back and reflected was, she's not even talking to me. She's talking to boyfriend number 4 or something like that from 1992. Like, I didn't even do any of that stuff that she was talking about. And that happened multiple times where it's like, oh, your past is catching up to you, and I just happen to be here to take the brunt of it. You know what I mean? And hey, there is some things that will correspond as far as how the man you're with right now acts and who you used to be with acts, because men are men. However, I'm not obligated to pay the price for something someone in your past did.
Right.
And that's the part when we meet God into the situation, He's the one who takes care of the stuff that we as human beings can't take care of. So what I mean by that is, what you're saying sometimes is, as a man and woman, when you're arguing with your significant other, because you're acting like your past, you want justice for something that happened to you.
That's exactly
and you're going
right.
to try to extract it from who you're with now, and they're not willing to pay the price. That's the ultimate conflict. And the thing is, though, God is willing to pay the price for something He didn't do.
Man.
That's why He's in the middle of it.
Whew.
Because if you don't, the debt has to get paid some way, somehow, some way. So someone has to pay it. Your ex probably isn't going to pay it. That's why he's your ex. Your ex isn't going to pay it. That's why she's your ex. However, someone has to pay it. And if you keep trying to make your current relationship pay for everything that happened to you, you're going to keep going into a cycle of revolving doors relationships, because they cannot pay that, and they don't want to pay it, and they shouldn't have to pay it.
You're exactly right. I just had a dream about this week, that I was with a new person, and I got triggered, and I was very angry. And it was like, in the dream, I was processing why I was angry, and also consciously having to slow down and not spew out my rage to the new person that offended me and didn't know that they offended me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you're exactly right. I wanted that. It's like the rage and the anger that I had for this one situation didn't even make sense.
Right.
Like the amount that it was for that situation.
Right.
The anger and it was rage that I had didn't even go with what was happening. Yes, at all. I'm like, what in the world? And so I'm realizing, no, the person that took your voice, the person that said you were a liar, the person that that rejected you, that abandoned you, the person that every single story that they made up about you was not a good story and wasn't the truth. And that's who you're really angry with.
Right.
And just this one thing this person did reminded you of that.
Right.
And so in the dream, it was like consciously me wanting to say it like this and also not to that person. It was like, and so it was I could see what I wanted to say, and then I could see the new person in like, this is what I need to say to you about you. Not, and then in my head it was just this like rage, and it's like, this has nothing to do with this person. This has everything to do with what I feel like was taken and needs to be, like, if I was the person I was now, I would have never accepted that. I would have never received that. I would have never said that was okay. And so now that I'm the person that I am now, then it's like, and I know what that took from me when I didn't know who I am, then it's like an anger. Like, you took this and I have it back and you're never going to take it again. And that's not even towards that person. It's towards the past. Like, and so that's where that rage comes from. That's where that hurt and that pain and that like indignation, you know.
And the thing is, it builds up over time, because if it's not expressed in a healthy way or at the time, it's just going to build up over time. And then when it does come out, it has all this like weight behind it, because it was sitting there for festering for 5 years or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm not sure if this ever happened to you, but have you ever gotten into a fight or almost got into a fight and ended up having a dream about the fight that night? About what you would have done and what you would have said and what you would have, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And just sitting there flip-flopping in the maze like a fish, fighting someone from like 48 hours ago, 2 hours interview. And it's like, why are you like tired anymore? It's like, because you had a whole extra fight after the fight.
Right.
This is what I was going to say. This is what I was going to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that the fact that it even happens in the first place lets you know like you haven't had closure, first off. And then second of all, you have to, what actually happens, what you said earlier about, I'm never going to let this happen again. So, you have the little fight that didn't go your way. You rehash it that night while you're sleeping or trying to sleep. And then what you tell yourself at the end is, I'm never going to let that happen again, right? So that little episode sits there for 5 years, just soaking up all your negative energy. And then the second that something similar happens, you just pop off. And it's like, why is your road rage? Because the last time that guy got cut off, he was cussing all the way home and never got to say it to the actual person that cut him off 5 years ago. And guess what? You cut him off now. So he's going to tell you everything that pissed him off today and last 5 years ago. So you're getting all that, right?
Oh,
or anything that he's wanting to say at work. Or anything that he wants to say to his spouse. Or anything that, you know what I mean? And we sometimes look at stuff that's disproportionate. Why did you freak out and have a fight in the middle of the mall? It doesn't make any sense. Because it wasn't about the mall, right? It was about everything else that happened before that. And we do that to our spouse all the time. Hey, she said something, or he did something, And it seems really similar to something that happened in my past. Let me go all the way off. You know? And again, they never did that. And when you're saying that, what was in my mind was like Christ said on the cross, he said, Lord, forgive them for they know not what they do.
Man.
Right? Because he's like,
right, it wasn't.
They have no idea. I'm dying for all sins in the world. Not even what's happening in this moment. What happened before and what's going to happen.
It's going to
happen. And they have no idea.
Right. Because you don't even know the effect of, until your hindsight, you don't even know the effect of some of the offenses that have happened in your life. You have
right.
no idea.
Right.
And I feel like in this season of my life, there's been a lot of times where I need to accept, like, the story. You know what I'm saying? Accept the full story. And
what do you mean by that?
I mean, in every area. So, especially the things that hurt me the most.
Okay.
Accepting that is what happened, that I'm fundamentally different than I was before.
Interesting.
And that it's going to be for my good, even if the situation wasn't good. And it's those different things where I don't have a resentment about the past. I feel like that's really what I've been on a journey of, is grieving the past so I can let go of that anger, so that so I'm not depressed, I'm not resentful, I'm not bitter. And at the same, and to do that, it is accepting the things that happened that I feel were unfair. And like you said, allowing Jesus to be payment enough for those things and to redeem it at the same time. Like, it wasn't just for nothing. It wasn't just for pain's sake. It wasn't just for suffering or to break me or destroy, or you know what I'm saying? And so I definitely think that that's going to help me to be better in all of my relationships, is by healing from those past things.
Definitely. The next stanza is the chorus. I read that.
Oh, I don't love you, but I always will. Oh, I don't love you, but I always will. I don't love you, but I always will. I always will.
I mean, that's one of the most kind of potent lyrics about that type of situation I've heard before, because it's almost like this willingness and unwillingness, and like you're almost throwing up your hands in exasperation and also embracing that person with everything that you have at the same time. It's just like hug, that's not a hug. Or the kiss is not a kiss. You know what I mean? It's like, I want you here, you're here, but I also want you to leave, and I also want you to come back. Like all these different pulling and pushing emotions happen at the same time. And I think that's part of the catastrophe of it all, is the how different they are, but they exist at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right. When you just said that, even when you went like this with your body, it made me think of being double-minded. You're unstable in all your ways. That's like what the word says. So it's like either you're all in or you're all out. And in that kind of relationship, it's so unstable. It's like neither person has really gone all in or gone all out. And when I think about it, even like Jesus, he was all in. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like in order to have the relationships that we want to have, that you have to be all in. That back and forth. And a lot of times when you go all in, that means you have to die to the previous version of yourself. And I feel like both people are attempting not to die to the previous version of themselves. And so that's how they're unstable in all their ways. And before, that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until all that is like, I feel like what I'm seeing is a rope, and it's like tension, just this going back until it makes it just weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker, and it just breaks.
Right. Yeah, it's that the big picture that came to my mind when you were talking was two people sawing a tree down.
Oh wow!
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And you're like pushing and pulling, and then you don't know how destructive you're being at the same time. It's like the tree of life is getting cut down by you guys because you're attempting to trade cutting words with each other. You're attempting to trade jabs. You're attempting to trade manipulation and anger with each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
And as you dim it and take it and dim it and take it, it's like this boxing match and no one wins. You know? It's like there's no way that you saw this person for the first time and was like, oh, I can't wait to argue with her. I can't wait to disagree with him. That's going to be so fun. You know what I mean? That wasn't your intention. You know what I mean? And we do that all the time.
Right.
You forget where you came from. It's like, you used to love this person, right? Like, you used to love this person.
That's the thing that I don't understand. I'm like, after this situation, I love when I've heard different people say, you make the issue the problem. You make the issue the enemy, not, or you know what I'm saying? The situation. Yeah, not the person.
Right.
You make the issue or the problem what you're coming up against as a couple.
Yeah.
And I feel like when we're not wise enough to do that, and we make each other the enemy instead of remembering that we love one another, and that the marriage and the relationship is more important than the problem.
Right.
So
part of the issue I think we're having, we spoke about this a little bit before, is that the lack of boundaries makes us act a certain way that we would not otherwise act. And what I mean by that is,
right,
if God is in the middle of your relationship and keeping you guys together and making sure you guys are still together, what that does is it says, there's certain lines I won't cross with my mouth. There's certain lines I won't cross with my body. I won't put hands on it, right? There's certain things where I just won't do and say certain things because I fear God. And even though I'm angry at this person, I know that she or he was made in the image of God, and that he's watching this whole situation, and so therefore I'm not going to act a certain way. You know what I mean?
Right.
What I feel like's happening nowadays is, because there is no fear of God and there's no God in the relationship, people are saying and doing things to each other that they wouldn't do otherwise, because there's no accountability anyways. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I don't have to answer for this. And the second that this relationship becomes inconvenient, it's me and mine. You know what I mean? The second it becomes inconvenient. And when you get to that mode where it's just me and mine, that's when you start saying and doing the things that you'd never do before. You know what I mean?
right,
You start getting to war mode, and it's like, it's just me. I'm gonna make sure I survive this, no matter what.
right,
There's no compromise. There's no seeing the problem and not the other person, and there's no that kind of empathy. There's no how do we make this work? There's no we anyways. You know what I mean?
at all.